Good morning. Happy day where we all lose an hour of sleep. Super exciting. If you are new to my page, my name is Karen. I am the founder of Karen's Corner, and I'm a virtual faith and fitness coach, and I love to do church before church on Sundays. And so whenever I come here live to share with you something from the Word, it's always something that God is teaching me. And so this morning, if you've been kind of following my page and seeing my feed, you're going to know that I've been in the book of Exodus reading the story of Moses. And man, it is packed with so much wisdom and truth. And I've read, the Bible several times. And so it's amazing to me how even if I read a story over and over, there's always something new that comes to light. And especially, you guys have seen this. This is my new journaling Bible. So on the side, it has like an area where you can write. And so that just gets me all excited. My little guy's over there enjoying the fireplace. I know, you're fine. Daddy's going to get him in a second. All right, so two big topics I want to share with you this morning. And the first one is that God is not always going to call us to things that we're really excited about. And the second is that discouragement is a silent killer. And those two things are things that I'm personally learning in my walk. There is something recently that I feel like God is starting to sort of reveal to me, an area that He wants me to serve in, and it's been really comical to me, like kind of where I step back and I literally respond the same way Moses did when God called him to go to Egypt and tell Pharaoh that, to let the Israelites go. And Moses was like, but who am I that I should go? And what if he doesn't believe me? And who should I tell them has sent me if they ask? And I really can't even speak, right? Like he just came out with all these excuses. Going back was not something in his agenda. It was not something he was excited about. And yet God called him to it anyway. And the question that kind of stood out to me is, Karen, will you be submissive? Will you submit to me even if you don't agree with me? Like, even if you don't agree that this is something that you're passionate about. Good morning, Jen. It's nice to see you on here, sister. Right? And so I think, I disciple a couple of college students, and I remember a theme that keeps coming up is this fear that they're doing something and they're not so sure if they're supposed to be there because they're not super amped up about it. And I think that there's this misconception that anytime God calls us to something, it should be something that we're like, I love this, I'm so passionate about this, this is great, I wouldn't think of anything else. That's not true. That's not true. God does sometimes call us to things that we're like, really? Really, me? Why? This isn't even an area of interest for me. And again, you're fine. And again, like, it goes back to submission. It goes back to, are we willing to be obedient? Are we willing to trust God? Because, listen, I'm 27. He's infinite. Like, so then the question is like, hey, Karen, do you trust me to write your story? Like, I know your past, present, and your future. I know you better than you know yourself. I know strengths that you don't even have yet that will develop. And I know that this is a passion of yours that can grow over time if you just let me write your story. So if you're somebody this morning and you are feeling like God has put you on a path that you're like, I just never thought I'd be here, and yet you don't see any other place. Like, you know that you're supposed to be there, but you're not that excited about it. Be patient, be obedient, be available, and trust that God is going to meet you exactly where you are. So don't believe this misconception that it's always supposed to be things you're excited about. I do believe that your passion will grow over time. Some people don't know this about Graham and I, but when I first met Graham, my husband, he has always had a calling for missions. Always. Like, since he was like in middle school or something. And I had moved here from Egypt. All I wanted was security, like the white picket fence, the ideal American dream. And so when he's telling me that, like, he may live in tents and like do all this medical mission stuff, that almost broke our relationship, because missions was not something, at least like outside of the country missions, was not something I was excited about or passionate about or felt called to at the time. I was just like, I don't even know. And yet God told me to stay. Here we are 8 years later, and this passion in me has grown for it. I have never done out of the country missions before. I don't even know what it looks like. And yet it gets me excited. It gets me fired up. It gets me passionate. And so God can change hearts. He can. But you have to be willing to trust Him in that process. point number 2. And again, like if you're with me live, join me. Tell me, like, have you ever been there? Have you ever felt like God has called you to a place where you're like, but. And this is happening to me again, which is why this was so important for me to read, that I'm starting to see places where he's like, I'm calling you to this. And I'm like, right? And so, but I'm learning to humble myself over here. So the second point, discouragement. Oh man, guys. Discouragement is one of those subtle weapons Satan uses against us. And it's so subtle that we don't even notice it. And it suffocates our faith, it suffocates our joy, it suffocates our peace. And I saw it even more clearly in Exodus. Literally, whip out your Bible with me. Check out Exodus chapter 6, right? And so Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh and they're like, let the Israelites go. And Pharaoh's like, I don't know who this God is that you're talking about. I don't really fear him. So I'm going to say no. And not only am I going to say no, but I'm going to make the work for the Israelites even harder. I'm going to tell them that they can't be even supplied with the straw to make bricks. Like they have to work and find their own equipment and make the same amount of bricks every day. Like he doubled the hardship that the Israelites were in. So when the Israelites go back to Moses and Aaron, they're like, what the schmo? I'm paraphrasing. And they're like, you did this. May God judge you. Like, and they just were super discouraged. So then Moses goes to God and he's like, what do I do here? Like, why did this happen? Why did you let this happen? And then God is very clear in verse 6. He says, I'm the Lord. I will bring you out, right, from under the yoke of the Egyptians. I will free you from being slaves to them, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your God. Then you will know that I am the Lord. I love this. This, by the way, is mentioned in Exodus a million times. Then you will know. Then you will know. Then you will know. Why does God allow trials and hardship? So we will know that he is Lord, right? And so he keeps telling him this, and Moses is like encouraged, and he's like awesome. And so he goes back to the Israelites to tell them this. Now catch this, verse 9. Moses reported this to the Israelites, but they did not listen to him because of their discouragement and harsh labor. You know, God just pounded promise after promise after promise. Like you just got crazy encouragement from God saying that he is God, that he's going to free you, that he's going to redeem you, that he's going to take you as his own, that then you will know that he is the Lord and that he's going to bring you out of slavery. These are some powerful, beautiful, life-giving promises. And yet the Israelites couldn't hear it because of their discouragement. So here's my truth bomb for you this morning. If you are in a pit of discouragement, you will not hear God. You will not, because you're going to be so swallowed up in your discouragement, so zoomed in, tunnel visioned in defeat, that he's probably speaking life to you, whether he's using people, his word, or whatever, and you can't even hear it because you've allowed discouragement to consume you. Discouragement, in a lot of ways, is birthed from pride. We get discouraged when we think that something should be happening to us and it isn't. Or we deserve something and it's not working out. The roots of discouragement really do come from pride. Good morning, Jana. It's nice to have you here, beautiful. So I really want to push you this morning in those two places. I really do. Because I'm being challenged like crazy in those two sections. When I get discouraged, because I do notice that my ears are not as in tune to God. And when he tells me a promise, whether I read scripture, I'm deaf-toned. Like I'm not hearing it. I'm reading it, but it's not sinking in. It's not changing my heart. It's not changing my attitude. So if you're discouraged, I want you to just pray this morning before you even do anything and just say like, God, this is where I am. I am discouraged, but I don't want that to stop me from hearing you. Help me out of this state of discouragement. Let me look to you, humble myself, and trust that anything that happens to me passes through your hands first. So I got to trust you, and I got to trust your promises even when they're not fulfilled yet. Even when they're not fulfilled yet. So That's my word for you this morning. I pray that it has encouraged you. Feel free to share this if you know somebody who is in the pit of discouragement. I'm not asking you to share so that I can be glorified. I'm asking you to share because this is God's word. Like, this is life. And if people are stuck in your life in discouragement, this is what brings them back. But they have to be willing to hear. We have to be willing to hear. And so I love you guys. Happy Sunday. If you are connected to a church, go. And if you're not, I encourage you to try to find one because community is so important. Growing together is so important. And so I pray that this has blessed you, and I will chat with you soon.